Talking Landscape Photography, episode number 59. Tonight, it's just Luke and I. Paulie's off doing some Paulie sort of thing that he does. He's gone surfing, I think, hasn't he, Luke? But
I'm not even sure, but that's our Paul.
Yep. Paul's somewhere else, but that's fine. So tonight we're doing another local show. We're actually pretty excited. We've got some awesome guests lined up in the next month or so.
World famous in Tasmania. Yep.
Yeah. But this week it's another Tasmanian show showing one of the locations that I'm probably most familiar with, which is the Tasman Peninsula. Tasman Peninsula is where my family's shack is. And my family have been going there since about 1985 when my grandparents bought the shack there. So I pretty much grew up every summer down there at the beaches and fishing with my grandfather, and I've got lots of wonderful memories, and we still have the shack down there, and so I go down there fairly often, maintaining it, take the family down when I can, and all the family sort of congregates there at Christmas, which is a great tradition. But since I took up photography, obviously I've had the camera down there quite a lot and done quite a few bits and pieces around the place. Not all of it. I'm not an expert on every square inch of the land on the Tasman Peninsula, but I have done a reasonable amount. And Luke, of course, has spent a fair bit of time down there, and particularly spent a few trips on the Three Capes track.
I've been lucky enough to photograph it commercially for both Parks Tasmania and also for the Tasmanian Walking Company. So you'll get a bit of a unique view tonight actually on the Three Capes Lodge Walk and also the Three Capes track public walk done by PWS. So it's not going to be all landscape photography. I'll have a little bit of my commercial work in there too, which could be quite interesting, a bit different, and also helps to give you a flavour of what the walks are like as well. So that'll be fun. Yeah,
it will be good to see your work there, Luke. And I was lucky enough that Luke invited me along for one of those trips. I've only done the Three Capes track once, and it was a great experience. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to enjoy it, because I had a lot of trepidation about the Three Capes track being put in the first place, and I still have some fundamental sort of blocks when it comes to big commercial hut walks.
Let's flesh that out a bit, Nick. Like, it's mainly around erosion of wilderness values and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it is. Look, there are lots and lots of arguments, and people will argue with you until you're blue in the face about these different things, and it's commercialising the national parks with lodges and private lodges inside a national park. That's the fundamental thing. It's opened up the track and the area to a lot of people that wouldn't otherwise be able to experience the place, and that's a positive. I don't think in general it's been done particularly sensitively. There's lots of considerations when you get that many people on a walk, and it's extremely popular. It's very much like the overland track in terms of numbers, if not, might even eclipse it at some stage.
Well, I mean, parks have been very clever, I guess, setting it up, and obviously, as a business opportunity, I suppose it's a much shorter walk than the overland track, quite a bit easier. And I would say, day for day probably provides a lot more scenery as well in terms of the stunning views. Overland track does have a few days where it's still extremely beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have the, jaw-dropping sort of views that you can get along the Tasman. So it's certainly something someone could sort of come over to Tassie for almost a bookended weekend and do it, and then go back, whereas the overland track's definitely quite a mission, really.
That's exactly right. It is a softer walk. There's no doubt about it. There isn't as much danger of getting yourself into trouble with the weather, although the weather can be absolutely terrible on the track.
Well, speaking of the weather, I had one day when I was photographing on, I was at, Cape Pillar Lodge, and we had snow to sea level that day.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
so yeah, which was I've never seen since, but that was pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that does sound crazy. It's
There
because
was
of
snow going
where.
up on Mount Fortescue.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Because of where it is, it's on the southeast sort of corner of Tasmania. It does get when you've got a southerly come through, you do get a lot of squalls and passing showers that can be quite heavy, and it's actually part of the beauty of the area, the weather that you won't see it in Hobart happening like it is, but out there on the edge of the coastline is quite spectacular, and there'll be some photos that we show that sort of demonstrates that during the show. Uh, yeah, and it's the tallest. The area around the Three Capes track and Cape Pillar have the tallest sea cliffs in the southern hemisphere.
I just wanted. A lot of people say that, and
You're
the
going to correct
interesting.
me.
Well, the interesting thing is, no. Well, I mean, I don't buck the trend because it's not popular. But I've been out to Lord Howe Island and out to Ball's Pyramid,
Oh yeah,
and those cliffs are actually taller. So
yeah,
I always find it interesting that they say that maybe from a land mass, whereas Ball's Pyramid's more of a a sea stack jutting out of the ocean. But I believe those sea cliffs are actually taller. So
yeah. They would be.
um,
They'd be about 600 meters, I think.
yeah, so I don't want to be a killjoy. I guess it sounds a lot better for marketing, doesn't it? When you can say it's when it's the tallest.
Yeah. Well, anyway, enough of that, Luke. But yes, generally the fact that's pointed out is they're the tallest sea cliffs in the southern hemisphere, and certainly from a perspective of being fairly accessible for tourists. They're a very quite an amazing sort of sight to see. They're up to 300 meters tall when on the end of Cape Pillar near the blade and towards the end, and we'll show you all this on the map. They're 300 meters tall. And then over at Cape Row, which is another walk that we'll talk about, that was originally mooted as being part of the Three Capes track and is actually the third cape. That's a bit over 200 metres tall, the sea cliffs there. So not quite as high as Cape Pillar, but still absolutely and utterly spectacular. And of course, one of the easiest ways to see them, even if you're not into bushwalking, is there's a cruise that you can take called the Tasman Island Cruises, which is the Rob Pennicott Journeys cruise, and that leaves from Port Arthur itself, or just around the corner in Stewart's Bay, and that will take you out on a boat cruise all round those sea cliffs, so you can see them from the base, and quite an amazing journey to do.
Yet to do that one actually, and I really do want to do that.
Yeah, I haven't done it either. I need to do it. I'll take the family when I do. Part of the Three Capes track experience that you pay for, and yes, it is a paid walk, the Three Capes track. The public walk is about $500, and you get lodging in huts, self-contained, but you've got to bring your own food, but that's $500. But part of the deal for that is you do get taken to the start of the walk on one of Rob Pennicott's boats, and you sort of go past the start of the walk and do a sort of mini Tasman Island cruise, but you don't go all the way up to Tasman Island. You go
sort of go to the heads of Port Arthur more so, isn't it?
Yeah, and you go through to Crescent Bay, which we'll show you on the map, and you do see that. And it's quite a good start to the Three Capes track experience, having that view from the sea. But I'd definitely recommend doing the full one if you can, even though I haven't done it myself. The entire, I know what the coastline's like, and to see it from a boat up and down would be an amazing experience for any photographer. And I'd be taking your wide angles and
wide as you can go, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, wide as you can go, and then as long as you can go as well.
For the bird life, and yeah.
Oh, there's sea eagles,
and
dolphins, whales. It's just an amazing sort of thing for a tourist or anyone to do.
Very similar to Bruny Island, actually, in that sense as well, which is we talked about the other week.
Yeah, did you do the cruise?
Giant cliffs as well.
Did you do the cruise down there? Or you've done other things?
I've done a private one, and also with Rob's as well. So both very similar experiences, and yeah, just awe-inspiring.
Yeah, well, it's the Dolores Cliffs, of course, the special rocks that we have here in Tasmania. And it's virtually the same. It's only a stone's throw from the Tasman Peninsula. Well, a bit more of a stone's throw down to the bottom of Bruny Island, but it's the same sort of terrain.
Yeah.
I think if you were to weigh them up side by side, I think the Tasman Island one would be just that bit more spectacular.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think there's any question there.
Yeah.
Just from the sheer ruggedness and also the Tasman Island factor too, which is there behind you, which is a stunning island off of the Blade at Cape Pillar.
Yep.
And we'll go through that in more detail.
Yeah.
Or maybe we talked a bit about location. Maybe we bring up a map and just let everyone know the lay of the land.
Yep, I'll share a screen. And there's a lot more to the Tasman Peninsula than the Three Capes track, I can assure you.
Oh, yes.
It's fantastic, but I'll bring it up. Just make it screen 2. Go there. All right, what are you looking at?
Yep, looking at it. It's all good.
Yeah, good. Excellent. All right. Okay, so I'll zoom out a bit so you can see where we are. Here's Tasmania. Absolute gem of a place it is. We have Hobart in here, of course, down in the southeast corner. And if we go a bit further southeast, we have the Tasman Peninsula and the Forrester Peninsula. I'll zoom in a bit more and show you that. And of course, you've got Bruny Island down here a bit further south. But if we zoom in here to the Tasman Peninsula, it's about an hour's drive from Hobart generally to the peninsula. So it's not a taxing drive. It's quite an easy drive.
It's more to Eaglehawk, sort of, isn't it? About an hour, and then probably a bit more from there. Or I guess you drive it a lot more than I do.
No, it's an hour. It'd be an hour from the CBD to Port Arthur, mate. Oh, look, okay. It might be an hour and 15. You might be right, but yeah. I mean, I drive it from the Huon, so I've sort of got to add on a bit of extra time.
Yeah, I'm probably the same, having to add on an extra 10 minutes. Yeah.
So. So the journey comes through from Hobart and then goes through Midway Point up here in Sorell. And then from Sorell, you come through Fawcett, down through Copping there, and then down to Dunalley. You might remember Dunalley as being a place that was devastated by bushfires in 2013. They've really come out from the ashes, and it's a great place to stop and have a meal.
That's the place where they were taking shelter in the water, wasn't it?
The jetty. I'll start in a bit here. Definitely, any journey to the peninsula is worthwhile stopping at some of these other places.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning Marion Bay for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was just about to say up here, if you take a detour at Copping or at near Dunalley, you can go over to Marion Bay, and you can see clearly here it's an enormous beach that faces due east. Great place for the rising Milky Way on a clear night at the start of the Milky Way season. So it's just a magnificent beach. You've got a spit here. It's a conservation area, of course. Just a great place to have a walk and look at the bird life. So it's definitely worth a look. And it's a great place for viewing storms as well. You have storms coming through. It's a great place to sort of sit there and watch them roll by.
Yeah, I guess it's very accessible that way, isn't it? Whereas some of the other spots, Yeah.
So after Dunalley, which you go across the Dunalley Canal, the Denison Canal here on a bridge.
That lifts up from time to time too, doesn't it?
It swings around, so it swings sideways to let the boats through. So it allows smaller boats to cut out a lot of the journey, which is quite treacherous around the base of the Tasman Peninsula. It gives them a more sheltered shortcut between the east coast and through to Hobart area without having to go around the Tasman Peninsula. So the peninsula after Dunalley is called the Forrester Peninsula, which is this one here. So after Dunalley and before you get to Eaglehawk Neck, that's the Forrester Peninsula. A lot of this area up on the sort of northern part is actually private property. You can go in there and camp if you pay for it, but it's private arrangement. It's a beautiful beach and
I'd
area.
love to get in there myself. I think there'd be some photos in there, but need to obviously get the permission.
Yeah, well, the property's called Bangor, which is, if we have a look here, we've got just after Dunalley, you've got the Bangor Vineyard Shed. Now they've got a lovely business in there, restaurant, function centre, winery. It's a great place to stop and have a coffee or a meal. But the family that owns Bangor literally own all this land that you can see right out to this 2 mile beach, etc. So it is all private property, and you would need permission to go in there. There are some other small walks that can be done on forest, sort of forestry trails, or often that go into this this area here. You can probably see Yellow Bluff. There's a couple of walks in there, but they're not generally well marked, or it's more of something a local would do if you're looking for somewhere you haven't been before.
Have you taken a look down that way yourself?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Definitely, it's a beautiful spot, but it's a maze of forestry roads if you don't know where you're going, and then the walk is not well marked. But anyway, there is a bit that can be done there, and this bottom area is state forest, and there's a fair bit of logging that happens in there. So once you're through Madonna, you head through to Eaglehawk Neck, and here we have front and centre, obviously, the tessellated pavement, which we'll talk about. I think most photographers would be familiar with the tessellated pavement. It's a 5-minute walk from where you park your car, so really accessible for anyone to go to for a sunrise, and it's usually best at sunrise. And that's on the far end of Pirates Bay Beach. So this large bay is Pirates Bay, and the neck is this isthmus here. A historic area. There was I've got the dog line up there at the moment. Basically, the Tasman Peninsula was an ideal place for a penal settlement, because if you're not familiar, and I'm sure most of you are, Port Arthur Historic Site is down on the Tasman Peninsula, and it was an ideal place for a convict settlement because it was very hard to get off. If you escaped as a convict, you couldn't. You had to go through the Eaglehawk Neck here, and they had a line of dogs set up across this really narrow isthmus here, and so if you're trying to get through there, you get caught out by the dogs that were pretty vicious, from what I hear. And there was obviously people stationed there, the soldiers, to stop convicts escaping up through. But that's why it was chosen, the area, because it was very difficult to escape from. Also at Eaglehawk Neck, definitely worth a stop through to the area down here at the end. We've got the blowhole right there, which is a pretty cool blowhole if the waves are really crashing in.
Yeah, it's a great place in general to go, isn't it? If there's a big swell coming in and in the right direction. Yeah, huge waves bashing up against the cliffs there.
Yeah, and you've got the Fossil Bay Lookout. So Fossil Bay is, so you've got the blowhole. Fossil Bay is this bay next to the car park, and the Fossil Bay Lookout is an easy walk, and you can see there's a picture that shows what's there. I will talk a bit more about that a bit later, because there are some good photo opportunities there, but you have to be extremely careful. But I'll talk about that a bit later. This is also a really busy boat ramp. There's a lot of boaties come down here and launch from here, and then they head out into the wide blue ocean, and it's a great spot for tuna fishing and that sort of game fishing. So if you're into fishing, you can get a charter from this boat ramp and head out for a fish. And you can see further down here, there's some islands offshore, which is a popular destination for tuna fishermen and that sort of thing.
Is that the Hippolyte Rocks?
Yeah, it's called Hippolyte Rocks.
Yeah.
And there's two, this is Cheverton Rock, but it's they're called the
Yeah, we'll
Hippolytes.
see some shots a bit later on, especially from the Three Capes track. That's quite a feature towards the back end of the walk.
Yeah, it is. The other thing, there's lots to do in this area in general, particularly if you're after a fairly casual walk. You've got Tasman Arch and Devil's Kitchen. There's literally a car park right here for both of these. You can just pull up and look over, and Tasman Arch, if I bring up that graphic there, you can see is a sea arch. It's absolutely spectacular, very, very high cliffs. Definitely worth a look. I haven't done a lot of photography there.
It's a bit of a challenge where the fence is, and it would be very hard to get a perspective there that looks fantastic. It's interesting too that with the Pentecote cruise, I just realized I had done it because I remember actually going in there from the boat, which they do, which is quite spectacular to do it that way.
Yeah. And you can see just from the type of the way the topographical features are here. There's all these caves and arches and cutouts just in this area here, but that continues all the way down the coast, all the way through to Cape Pillar. So yeah, if you can get to it by boat by any means, you're going to see some spectacular stuff. And you've also got Devil's Kitchen here, which is a collapsed. It doesn't really show up there, but it's like Tasman Arch, but it's collapsed in. So it's just a really deep chasm that's very accessible. You can see the walking tracks just lead straight to the side. There's safety fences all along there, so you can take the kids with no dramas. But if you have vertigo, these are big drops off, but definitely worth a look.
Almost feels a bit like Tassie's Answer to the Great Ocean Road, but on a much smaller scale through there with all of the different rock formations, and I really do enjoy that cliff lookout point there too. It's got quite a beautiful view across the bay there.
Yeah. No, it's a really nice.
You probably got a couple of shots of that coming up too.
Yeah. Not that particular lookout, but other lookout further down. So also you can walk from Devil's Kitchen through to Waterfall Bay. That's a really worthwhile walk along there. It takes about half an hour. It's not a very long walk. The other thing you can do if you're a bit less mobile is there is a gravel road. You can see clearly here there's a road that you can access from up here. It's called Waterfall Bay Road. So you can actually drive all the way to Waterfall Bay on that gravel road. Just have to be careful, obviously, particularly if it's been wet, it gets a bit soggy. But there's a car park at the end there, and then there's several lookout points that looks across this Waterfall Bay. Now it's called Waterfall Bay because there's a waterfall that comes off the cliff on the opposite side here, along here somewhere.
But that's only after really heavy rain, isn't it? It doesn't run most of the time.
Yeah, I've got some photos to show you what that's all about. You can certainly see there's a soak that goes. You'll see where it is, even if it's not running fully. It's usually just a bit of a trickle. It hasn't got a big catchment, but if there's been a lot of rain, it's extremely spectacular. Very, very large waterfall that goes straight into the ocean from there. And the other thing you can do from Waterfall Bay is you can see here there's another track that comes around, and that goes to a lookout here at the end called Waterfall Bluff, and that's really worthwhile doing. Luke's come with me on a walk to that once, and I've done that quite a few times. Great
place for long exposures too.
Yep, which I've got some. Great for sunrise, particularly there. It's a really good spot. It's not fenced at that point. It's not a great spot for young children. It's an easy enough walk that fairly young children could do it, but they have to be extremely well supervised. It goes right next to very, very tall cliffs. So just bear that in mind. It's pretty crumbly as well. There are some spots here where the track goes right next to the cliff, where theoretically you can go right to the edge of the cliff, but it's a really crumbly sort of rock, and I wouldn't recommend anyone do anything silly in that location because it won't end well.
That goes for pretty much any cliff on the peninsula, really.
Yeah, well, look, a lot of them,
a lot of them
have
from it.
Yeah, a lot of them have fences. Like if you're bringing the family to the Waterfall Bay Lookout, that's all fenced. But once you get onto this track here, it's not. It's unfenced. But if you take them on the Waterfall Bay track, that's all fenced. Well, within reason. The vegetation prevents other areas along there. But
you do generally tend to find on the peninsula that, I mean, the only very, very heavily touristed areas that have fences.
Yeah.
There's only on the Three Capes track, for example, there's only maybe Cape Hoy, only a very few areas that actually do have a fence. So you do have to have your wits about you.
Yeah. And all this area can be very windy. Some of the cliffs you can be on, a gust of wind would take you over the top, so just be really careful. The other feature of the Waterfall Bluff walk around here is there's actually a little creek that you cross over, and it's the same creek that feeds the waterfall that goes into the bay. And there's actually a couple of waterfalls from the track that you can visit, and I'll show you those, which are beautiful little waterfalls. And again, like in the height of summer, there won't be much water going over them, but if there's a bit of water going over the cliff that you can see from the Waterfall Bay Lookout, then there'll be a bit of water going over those little waterfalls.
Probably one of the only opportunities that you'd see something like that on the peninsula too. It's generally quite dry, isn't it? So
yeah, there's not a lot of waterfalls. There's only one or two others that are very unknown in general, but they're nice, and it means that this walk, which takes you about 35 to 45 minutes to get round to Waterfall Bluff, it just means that there's so much to do, and probably the thing with the Tasman Peninsula is there is so much to see and do in a short area. So you're not going to run out of things to photograph. You're not going to run out of spectacular views. The whole thing's just spectacular, and you can't go wrong wherever you go.
And I think the thing too is if you're prepared to walk a little bit, I mean, a lot of the I guess the touristy people will just stay at the lookouts, and if you're prepared to do a little bit of extra walking, you'll find that the number of people drops off pretty rapidly. Yeah,
and you can see that there's actually a track junction here, and this walk will actually take you over to Fortescue Bay.
Oh wow!
Is here. So you got Waterfall Bay Lookout, and then you got Fortescue down here. So there's actually a track that goes all the way up this quite steep hill, and all the way along there to Fortescue Bay. And I actually haven't done the full walk, which is a bit of an issue.
I reckon it's got pretty good potential for some photos through there.
Oh yes, yeah. And you'll see the coastline when I'll show the shots of Waterfall Bluff a bit later. But one of the features of the Tasman Peninsula that I absolutely love, and I haven't done a lot of exploration of, is the vegetation, and particularly there's a few spots where there's what you call cloud forest. And on the Three Capes track there is, and
Fortescue, and
on this track as well there is. And if we zoom in here on the top of the mountain where this track goes through, you can see that this is quite green through here. It's like a different colour. That's all cloud forest. So these are ferns and rainforesty sort of species like sassafras, and sort of plants that you would only really see in rainforest. And the reason being, I'll just go into the 3D view. So if we go to the 3D view here, you can see that's quite a large hill. And what happens is the moisture from the sea comes in clouds, and it hits the coast here, and so these peaks are get quite moist, but only the tops of the peaks, and so you'll get sea mists, and the precipitation is locally a lot higher just on the top of these peaks, and as a result you get these what are called cloud forests. Lord Howe Island's got cloud forest, I think, on the peaks there. Luke.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And on the Three Capes track, there are two major patches of cloud forest as well that you get to see. And the thing that really blew me away, having not done that area before I did the Three Capes track, was the changes in vegetation. I mean, Luke will remember me just banging on and on about the vegetation on the Three Capes track.
Yeah, I tried to put it out of my mind after a while, but
yes, yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, it's amazing. Every time you go around a corner, it feels like it changes, and that's one great thing about the track. It even though it's the same place, quite often you feel like you're in a totally different one.
Yeah, yeah. So so there's some quite unique eucalypt species that are quite gnarled and spectacular that you don't really see much of in other parts of Tasmania. And that was really great to see. And then you get the cloud forests, and if you go at the right time of year, summer particularly, you'll get the coastal flowers, which are pretty spectacular, to be honest.
We might need to speed through this map bit too, Nick, just so we've got enough time for all the photos.
Yes, true.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Look, I could go on about this for ages.
I know.
So anyway, this area here is basically Cape Pillar and Tasman Island, where the Three Capes track is based. At the top here, we've got near Forrester Bay, which is the conclusion of the Three Capes track. You've got Cape Hoy at the top, which is one of the Three Capes, and then Cape Pillar is the other of the Three Capes. Cape Rowell was supposed to be the third cape, but it's not there.
And there's Rowell's there. Might as well point that out.
Yep. So
while you're there,
just going across here, so that's the Three Capes track on Cape Pillar, and then the other area that we'll talk about tonight is Cape Rowell down here, which, in my opinion, is probably the best value day walk you can do in Tasmania, and that's probably saying something. I mean, that's debatable, but you're not going to be sorry. Put it that way. You're not going to be sorry. Absolutely spectacular walk. You will not be disappointed with Cape Rowell. And over here,
famous Shipstern Bluff there might be worth pointing out too, where the
So Shipstern Bluff, you can go to Shipstern Bluff off the Cape Rowell track as a separate walk. You start on the Cape Rowell track and then you turn off. Shipstern Bluff is the famous surfing area.
Big slab wave.
Yeah. So
I think they were going to have the Red Bull Cape Fear there, but I think they had to cancel it. So it's very a lot of the crazy wave photos you see coming out of Tassie, that's pretty much where most of them come from.
Yeah, and it's called Shipstern Bluff because it's shaped like a ship's stern. But yeah, it's got a shelf here that attracts the big slabs of waves. It's quite an amazing spot. Definitely worth a look if you're in the area for a while. And further on, actually, there's Tunnel Bay, which is up here, which is literally got a tunnel, like another sea arch in there, which is a worthwhile walk as well.
There's only walking. There's no vehicle access.
No, it's only walking.
Yeah.
So Cape Rowell, Shipstern Bluff, and Tunnel Bay is all walking only. The walk to Cape Rowell is 5 hours return, but I'd definitely allow another couple of hours for breaks and for photography.
Definitely.
You'll need it.
There's also a campsite at the car park there too, which helps.
At Cape Rowell, yes, yeah. And there is. You can set up your tent at the start of that walk.
It's paid though, just private.
Yeah. So this area here is the area I'm probably the most familiar with, the Remarkable Cave area. So this bay here,
and that's probably because it's the closest to your shack, isn't it?
Exactly
just down the road.
Yeah. So this whole bay here is called Mangon Bay. So when I'm talking about Mangron Bay, this is the bay, and in here is the Mangon Bay Lookout and Remarkable Cave, both spectacular spots.
They've been doing a lot of work in there, Nick, on the platforms. Have you seen what that's turned out like? Or
yeah, it's all awful. This is because it's now a big tourist attraction. They've put in a massive car park and catered for the amount of people that were visiting. It's gone from being quaint to being a bit over the top. Bear in mind, I'm literally a local to this area, and I've been going here for 35 years, and it's a bit disappointing to see. Most people will argue with me and say it's great because it means more people can visit and stuff. Well, yeah, sure, okay, but yeah, it's really changed. It doesn't look okay. So zooming in here, it doesn't look like that anymore. This is all changed. This
redeveloped and
redeveloped.
I think it's also they're trying to get a bit more people going out to Crescent Bay and making that a bit more of a thing too. So I think that was another part of upgrading there.
Yeah,
certainly the track out to Crescent Bay is in pretty good nick from last time I did it.
Yeah. So Crescent Bay, as Luke's just been talking about, is this most amazing beach.
Yeah, one of the most beautiful in Tassie and probably one of the most underrated, I think.
Yeah, well, it's not underrated by anyone that's seen it. It's just been under the radar.
Yeah,
it's no longer under the radar. There's been an upgrade done to the track. It's well advertised and it's now very, very popular. The track is very easy. It didn't used to be an easy track. It was quite sand duney and that sort of thing, but it's all now been hardened and upgraded to 3 Capes standard, which is hard gravel most of the way. Very easy walking. You could ride a bike on it, to be honest. You're not allowed to, but you could. It's that good. So Crescent Bay is definitely worth the walk. It is spectacular. You have another blowhole here, which is a huge, another big chasm. It's quite narrow, but it's very, very deep. It doesn't blow as a blowhole that often. If you're there in bad weather, then you might get wet, but it's probably 100-metre drop down into maybe not quite that, down into where the water's coming through. And you've got Mount Brown here, which is another spectacular cliff spot where you can get great views of Crescent Bay, as you can see from the graphic that's come up there. Very, very, very good, but unfenced cliffs. Once again, you can see it's almost like the Nut at Stanley. It's quite an amazing spot, Mount Brown, and this area here is very popular with rock climbers. They've got more guts than me, I can tell you. It's about 100. Yeah, thanks. It's about 180-metre drop off that cliff, so it's a very, very tall cliff there. But you can see in the 3D view how spectacular this area is.
And it's probably worth mentioning too that it's not obviously the only place that rock climbers froth over. I've seen them at Cape Rowell and Cape Pillar, and it's just a bit of must be a playground for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll get into the photos. There's a lot more to show you. Of course, you've got Port Arthur Historic Site, which is here in this sheltered bay. Got Carnarvon Bay settlement here, which is a shack area and where my shack is based. So you can see basically how close my shack is. I'm not going to point out the actual shack, but how close it is to the Remarkable Cave. And you've got this beautiful beach called Safety Cove, which is a wonderful beach for a stroll along of an evening or any time of the day, really. Got a spectacular golf course here, Port Arthur Golf Course, including the 7th hole, I think it is, that goes over a cliff. So one of these holes is the 8th. Oh, my wife just called out and said it's the 8th. She knows the golf. And yeah, the tee goes directly over one of these little bays here. You've got to actually go over it. I can't work out which one it is, but it's quite amazing. Another historic site here called Point Pure, where the boys' home for all the naughty boys were housed, across from the main where the men were housed there. So it's another spot you can drive to a certain point and then walk into Point Pure.
Have you done much photography, actually? I know you know landscapes or wilderness is more your thing, but have you done much in Port Arthur itself at all?
No.
Yeah, I regret I haven't either, because friend Ben, he does amazing astro work in there. So yeah, that's definitely a place. Obviously,
Yeah.
that you'd have to have permission to do that because you can't
Yeah,
just walk in there. But
yeah, it's worth just pointing that out. You can't go into Port Arthur Historic Site at night and just take photos. That's a specific arrangement that Ben had with the historic site, and he does run a couple of workshops there every now and again. It's Ben Wilkinson, if anyone's interested.
Yeah,
lovely chap and a great photographer. So
you just say that because he shoots Nikon, right? Nikon.
Yeah, no, I'm not just saying that. But he's come up with an arrangement with the historic site to photograph in there at night. I don't know if he's running those things at the moment, but
yeah. And he's also, come to think of it, also runs ones onto Tasman Island, which is also another Tasman location. So he's got Tasman covered pretty well with his workshops there.
That's quite a unique opportunity that he's managed to snavel, would be the best way of describing that. He's done very well. You need a helicopter to get to Tasman Island. It's surrounded by 200-metre high cliffs. 280 metres in some places. So we'll show you pictures of Tasman Island. In fact, it's my background that you can probably see at the moment. So yes, he does have tours there. They're very infrequent and they get snapped up as soon as he advertises them.
It's probably more done by locals than anything, just because of the short duration of the trip.
Yeah.
It's just a day trip.
There's a bit of contention about tourism on Tasman Island. It hasn't been open to tourists before. It's just sort of edging open to tourists by special arrangement. And I'm a bit concerned that it'll become a destination, which I don't think it should. But anyway, it's just me. The occasional touristy thing over there is probably okay, but if it's an everyday thing, I think it'll degrade that area somewhat. But
so it's fair to say that what we've covered so far is probably the more commonly visited areas, but there is a sort of the next little patch of the Tasman which doesn't get visited so much, but it's got some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So I'll just briefly touch on some other bits before we get in the photos, because you're all getting bored, I'm sure. We've got New Beena here, which is the main sort of residential. Well, it's the biggest town on the Tasman Peninsula. They've got a small hospital there. When I say small, I mean small. It's quite a small place. Just beyond New Beena.
White Beach down there, that's a bit of a bio hotspot from time to time.
Yeah, bioluminescence tends to gather in there. It's a beautiful area, and there's a lot of shacks in the area, as you can see, as well as accommodation. It's a very popular spot for locals to have shacks, etc. It's a beautiful little beach, but it's not a surf beach or anything. It's just a really calm, gentle spot where you can take young kids for a paddle. But yes, you do get bio trapped in there quite often, which is pretty cool. In contrast, a bit further on, you've got Roaring Beach. Tasmania's got about 15 roaring beaches. Not quite, but I think there are 5 or 6 roaring beaches, and this is Roaring Beach near New Beena. This is a surf beach. It's quite a dangerous place to swim if you don't know what you're doing. It's got a strong undertow, but it's a great spot for some photography, particularly sunsets, because it sort of faces west, or these rocks do. They're quite cool, these rocks here, and I've got a couple of shots that I'll show you of that.
Big crop circles there too, by the looks.
Yeah, some interesting people live up in this area. Not so I hear anyway. And you basically walk the car parks here, you can see. So it's a bit of a walk through to the beach, and this river doesn't normally come out, but after really heavy rain, you might not be able to get to the beach.
I'll have to consider that. That'd be pretty specky, I reckon, when that comes through.
Yeah, and what is cool is you've got sort of riverbed rocks through here that have been swept out, and you get some nice sand patterns in this area as well, which is really nice.
It's still quite wild too, the beach. Like it hasn't really been impacted too much.
No, it is. It's a lovely beach. it does get a fair bit of wind. It's facing southwest, so on a windy day, it's not a pleasant place to be. Up here, you've got so this is on the sort of the inland tip. You've got the coal mines historic site. That is open all hours of the day. You're allowed to go there any times. So
definitely been meaning to get in there for some night stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Yeah. So I haven't done any night stuff there, but I will endeavour to do that at some stage. And I have seen some lovely night shots from there. I can't remember who, but there's been a few people that have gone in there. So that's a nice spot with some ruins and some you can read about the convict heritage out there. And then you've got Lion Bay here, which is a major camping spot. It's quite a popular camping spot, particularly in summer. This area here is all sort of sandstone. It's quite a large camping spot there, but a really nice spot to visit the beach. And then you can walk across from Lion Bay over to Lagoon Beach, which is quite a remote beach. And there's some really nice sort of sandstone formations at the end of the beach on the northern end, which I've got a couple of shots of. But that's really beautiful beach, Lagoon Beach. And then Sloping Main is another settlement here. So you've got the Sloping Main Beach through there.
That's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. We've managed to cover a fair bit of ground. So
yeah, no, that's a lot of detail. And, I guess we probably won't refer back to the map, but, if you watch the episode back in reference to a shot that we talk about, then you can place it on the map later as well.
Yeah. So we better bring up some photos, I think, Luke.
Yeah, why not? That's what we're here for.
should we start? Do you want me to start with something, or do you want?
Yeah, I reckon we'll go through yours first, and if there's time after your lovely chat, then I'll show mine as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll start with talk about Mangon Bay. So, so Mangon Bay was a spot near Remarkable Cove, and so I've got Maingon Bay and Crescent Bay in this folder here, and we'll have a bit of a look at it. So you've got my thing up there, I assume.
Yep.
So this is in front of the lookout. You can get down to the rocks in front of the lookout. There is a track down to it. It's not visited by most people because they stop at the lookout, but you can get down to it if you want. It's a lovely place for a sunrise or a sunset, although you don't tend to get a lot of direct light because it faces due south. And also because it faces due south, it's a great spot for an aurora in the right conditions.
And so when you say Mangon Bay, you're basically saying the Remarkable Cave car park, essentially, isn't it?
Yep. That's what I'm saying. If you do tend to venture down to any of these rocks, again, you have to be extremely careful. It's very dangerous in places, particularly if there is a big surf. And I can assure you that this is a massive surf that you're looking at here. It's calm in terms of wind, but there's a big swell rolling in, and they get even bigger than that. So you have to be really quite careful of that sort of thing.
Do you have your bio shot coming up from here?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Oh, well.
Yeah, this is another spot. If you're in the car park, you'll see where this spot is. I've put it in. It was a point of reflection taking this shot. It was taken just before there was a plane crash during the Sydney to Hobart yacht race, where a plane with a pilot and photographer died, and that happened directly out to sea in front of this where this photograph was taken. And this was taken, I think it was either taken just before or just after the plane crash. I went down there to reflect a bit and took this shot. You can't get down there easily. It's dangerous. So I'll keep saying it. There are spots that I go sometimes because I know the area pretty well and I know the ways to get down to places that are a bit dangerous, and this is one of those. If you're in the car park, you'll see where this is, but you'll wonder how I got down there. But I don't recommend anyone goes down there if you don't know what you're doing. This is again on the rocks in front of the Mangon Bay Lookout. And there's this beautiful rock pool down the bottom there. Obviously, this is taken fairly early morning, I think, with the sun on the cliff behind. Again, another spot where the water can come in at any time if you're not careful. This is a bit further around the bay. A lovely spot that isn't that easy to get to. And I definitely don't recommend doing it in the dark. If you don't know where you're going, it is off the beaten track, but it's not particularly sensitive in terms of vegetation. It's all coastal scrub. It's a bit difficult to get through.
It's a good case in point too, that even if you've got a bit of dreary weather, you can still come away with something too. That doesn't look like it's particularly inspiring, the weather you had that day. Yeah.
So I put that in just to show the area, and this is obviously slightly better weather. You can see how the waves come over this area here, in the same sort of area, way after sunset.
Nice view there to Cape Rail in the distance as well.
Yeah, I haven't done much in terms of resolution with these, but Cape Rail's there. And if
got a most amazing side profile, doesn't it, with the dolerite columns? Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll see that. Yeah, it's a lovely spot. And if you break out your long lens, you can isolate the end of Cape Rail with a 300 or 400 mil lens. So you can get a really nice silhouette at sunset, for example. And we're moving on to Crescent Bay now. So this is the walk from that we showed before at Crescent Bay. This is on the dunes, and that's Mount Brown that we're talking about with the rock climbing on the other side of that cliff. So you can get to this spot. The walking track comes in from the opposite end of the beach that you can see there. So when you walk onto Crescent Bay, you'll be at the far end. And this is looking basically the same shot, but the opposite direction. And you can see, I'll zoom in a bit there, you can see Tasman Island and part of Cape Pillar.
Mount Arthur there, isn't it? Oh, no. Oh, no, that's up to the left, yeah.
That's Mount Arthur there.
Yeah.
So the blade that we'll talk about later is actually around the corner. It's not in this photo. So there's and Cape Pillar itself is on the other side of that. But
geez, that's tack sharp, Nick. Nice one. Yeah, and the thing I love about the beach too is the scalloping on there, which you don't see quite so much.
I've got a couple of pictures to show that in a sec. This is just on the top of the cliffs on Mount Brown. Just you can see the sort of vegetation that you get there.
Would have put up with a fair bit.
This is just looking down on Crescent Bay from Mount Brown, about halfway up Mount Brown. It's not all the way up. You can get this view without going to the top of Mount Brown. There's a couple of people there on the beach, not full res, of course, but
it gives you an idea of scale, though, doesn't it?
It's a big beach. Because it's become a lot more popular. In summer you're going to get quite a few people on the beach during the day. Kids like to bring bodyboards, and they'll sort of sand surf down the dunes, which as you can see are enormous.
It's pretty uncommon for Tassie beaches actually to have such big dunes right next to the beach as well. So
it is. It's they're specky dunes. As I said, this is a minor aurora from near the Mangon Bay Lookout. Just obviously took it with I'll have to revisit this shot when there's a bigger aurora actually, because it would look better with more glow.
Oh, that's great.
So this is aurora shot with a bigger aurora, but not the greatest conditions. Like I said, don't go down here in the dark. If you don't know where you're going, you will get into trouble. In fact, when I took this shot, I was struggling to get back through the scrub, and I stopped to tie up my shoelace, and I left my tripod behind, and I got back to the car and then went, where's my tripod? And I had to go all the way back, which was unpleasant because it's unpleasant scrub to get to there.
So you've been working that rock for a while too. Nice.
Well, the thing is, this rock is an erratic. It's sandstone that's come off the off the sandstone cliff behind and just rolled into place here, and the rest of the rock is the coastal dolerite. So
it'd be pretty awesome for bio in there too, wouldn't it? If that was all lighting up.
Yeah, and you do get bio in Mangon Bay. It's not that often, and you'd have to be there at just the right time. And yeah, you'll see a shot in a minute of the bio in Mangon Bay. But yeah, it's I'd love to see it with a really good spread of bio. But I lit that with a couple of different torches. If you're wondering how I've done that,
yeah, lighting's great.
Yeah, and this is Crescent Bay again. That middle section that you saw with the people walking up in the top of this rock area. But you get this
almost a feathered appearance too, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's again like I was talking about Roaring Beach. It's a bit of a dangerous place to swim. It's got a pretty serious undertow, and you can see from the scalloping the way the waves sort of come up quite steeply onto the beach and then eat away these hollows. So yeah, if you do swim there, just bear in mind that you'll have to be very careful. It's not patrolled or anything like that, and the waves crash quite steeply, which is something you see a lot of on the east coast, actually, particularly up at the Bay of Fires. You get some really steep meeting of beach and waves that makes it a bit dangerous. And this is Aurora and bio at Maingon Bay. So ignoring the silhouette there, that you can see the bio in the waves where it's crashed. How this shot happened, in case you're wondering, there was actually a couple of surfers that were camping on the rock shelf just behind me, and so I surprised them when I came down to take photos, and they were watching the Aurora. And while I was taking this shot, one of them turned on his head torch for about a second, and he lit up the water there and silhouetted me, which was quite a happy accident in the end. Yeah, it's a spectacular little spot.
And looking at this image makes me feel uncomfortable. It's not because of the image itself, but it reminds me of standing in a similar place and getting bitten by jack jumpers there. So if you're walking around, just be very careful about that. Jack jumpers can cause anaphylaxis.
Yeah.
And I did have a bit of a reaction. One bit me on one ankle, and then I ran up to the platform, and then by the time I was wiping my shoes off, one bit the other ankle. So that was really lovely end to the evening. That was.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be careful.
Yeah. There's no phone reception down here on the rocks or at the lookout itself. There is if you get in your car and drive back to the top of the rise and out back towards.
I think at the top of the car park now, there's a bit there. So
yeah, so there's none at the actual lookout itself. Just bear in mind. I didn't put in any shots of remarkable caves, which I
don't have any either. Actually,
I haven't taken many. Yeah. Remarkable caves. If you Google it, you'll find plenty of shots.
Probably more of an Instagrammy sort of focused area for some. Well, that's just what I think when I think of it, but yeah, it's definitely got a lot of potential for great photos. So
yeah,
I think it's always closed whenever I go there because they were doing so much work on the platforms and things like that. So I've seen some amazing footage too of massive swell going through, and then people being on the old platform and almost being swept off it and things. So
that was actually the new platform.
Oh, was
yeah. So there's a platform and fences where you can't easily go into the cave itself. The sea comes straight through the cave, but at low tide on a calm day, it is possible to walk out through the cave. No one recommends doing that. I don't recommend doing it. I haven't done it for many years, and I wouldn't do it because it's not good form. There's a very big fence in the way. You're going to have to go to considerable effort to go over the fence and then down into the cave, and it's just not a good example for other people. So I don't really recommend it unless you enjoy jumping fences. It's a pretty serious fence that you've got to jump.
Yeah, that's a challenge. We might have to keep ripping through these, Nick, just so there's enough time.
Yeah,
to be the timekeeper.
Yeah, we might just quickly go to Waterfall Bay, etc.
Gosh, that's a pretty amazing preview just there.
Yeah, so this is actually, remember we talked about the Fossil Bluff Lookout and the blowhole at what's it called, at Eagle Hawk Neck there. So this is on the tidal shelves behind that. Again, don't go here unless you know what you're doing. Like I said, I've been going.
Bit of a theme going here, Nick.
There's around the corner from this. There's another area you can access these tidal shelves, and there's actually a sign there that says a honeymooning couple died on these shelves. They got swept off by a rogue wave. Don't get up on these. Basically, is what the sign says. So, yeah. Again, it's like those that are familiar with the shelves in Sydney and Royal National Park and all that sort of area. It's can be dangerous in the wrong swells, and you can get rogue waves here very easily. You can't be here at high tide. It's just not a great place to be. I'm showing you these because they're nice shots I've taken of the area, but
I think it's like pretty natural too if you've shot in a particular place for so long that you start to explore and venture out a bit further. Whereas and you've probably been to these places many times before you've done that. So if folks are just visiting for the first time, then that just has to be considered in that respect.
If you're there as a tourist, you don't need to do this stuff that I'm showing you. It's quite, you'll be fine with the lookouts that are there. You don't have to scramble around and do things that are dangerous. You can see here the water falling off the tidal shelf. So a wave has broken on this shelf and then come off. And if you go there at the wrong time, you could die quite easily. It's not easy to get onto this shelf in the first place. It's a bit of a climb up, and dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, but spectacular.
Wow.
Yeah.
What light?
Yeah.
Must have been a pretty big swell, that one.
Yeah. Reasonable swell. Yep.
Is that Hippolyte in the distance there? Very far.
Yep. So I haven't got much of a resolution, but you can see Hippolyte in there. I only put in smaller files for those.
Oh wow! Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So they're the Hippolyte rocks, the two rocks there you can see. It only took about 200 frames to get a wave not good enough.
Wow.
But it's actually a good, that Fossil Bluff Lookout is a great place for doing some wave photography. It
really is.
This is taken from down on those shelves, but you're right. They're not in any particular order, so we'll jump around a bit. Remember the waterfalls I told you in Waterfall Bay? This one's called Camp Falls, and it's right beside the track. The track goes across the creek at the top of this fall. I don't find Camp Falls particularly spectacular, but in the right light, it's okay. But the one downstream is called Shower Falls, Shower Cave Falls. Shower Falls? I think it's a Shower Falls, not Shower Cave. That's another one.
Yeah, there's another one, yeah.
Anyway, this is behind Shower Falls. You can walk behind it, as you can see. It's downstream from Camp Falls. So if you go, there's a little track down to Camp Falls, and then you can just keep going along and you'll get to Shower Falls. And it's the nicer looking waterfall. I've got a couple of shots that show you the falls from the other side in a bit. And that's just another shot of the falls there with a bit of highlight from the sun. Beautiful little waterfall. We're talking about the Waterfall Bluff Lookout on the Waterfall Bluff track it's the same track that those falls are on, and this is the view that you get from that track. This is obviously taken really early in the morning before sunrise.
A bit of a sea cave there in the foreground too, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, this is obviously a high res one. So there's a cave in there. Very, very high cliffs. This is unfenced. And one time I went there was a tiger snake living under the rock. So there's a sort of a rock slab that I'm pretty much standing on here. There was a tiger snake when I arrived there, it crawled under that rock. But what we have over here is Cape Hoy. So Cape Hoy is the first cape of the 3 capes track, and you've got
That's the last one.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the last one if you go in that direction.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think of it as the first one. But you've got
you can go there independently too. Like, you don't have to do the 3 capes track to get there.
Yep. So you can go from Fortescue Bay as a day walk. It's definitely worth doing. And you've got the lanterns and the candlestick, and then just beside the mainland and the candlestick, you'll see the totem pole, which is a very famous rock climbing
Martin,
spot.
was it Martin that had a shot of that?
Yeah,
we had someone on with a shot of that just very recently. So.
Yeah. I've got a couple more of this lookout. That was here's Shower Falls taken from the base. So
I would never pick that as being the Tasman. Never.
No, it's a beautiful little spot. And there was a reasonable amount of water going over it. So it probably isn't like this in the height of summer. It's just another shot from a bit further down. I've put this one in as so you don't have to go here.
It doesn't work that way.
This is the top of the waterfall that goes into the bay. So when you're on Waterfall Bay looking across at the waterfall, this is the top of the waterfall. It's a very, very long way down, very slippery here at the top. And now you've seen the photo, you don't have to go to this point, and there's no track to it. It's a bush bash. Don't bother. And that's the waterfall. So this waterfall.
I've seen a better shot of it.
This was taken in the storms in 2016. We had a big East Coast low that eroded most of Sydney coast.
Same one.
I think so.
It makes sense.
And so this is in full flow with lots of rain and obviously enormous waves and a mist over the top. I was very, very lucky.
Must have been.
I've never seen
lucky stars that day.
I've never seen it like it since. But I mean, I went there knowing that I was going to get something like that. Once I saw the storm was on, I was lucky I had a few days off work, and so I went down to the shack and shot the big waves. Actually got marooned from the shack because a tree came across the highway and I couldn't get back to it. So I had to go to the pub at Dunalley instead and have a meal. I got back there eventually. But it's an amazing spot when it looks like this. Most of the time, it doesn't look like that.
No, it doesn't. It's still very, very beautiful. Irrespective of the waterfall, though. That's a very close-in shot of it. But the bluff itself, as a wider shot, very specky. I don't know if you've got one of those, Nick, but
I don't think I've included it. But the bay itself is spectacular. It's very, very high and cliffy. You can shoot it there from there's 2 or 3 lookout points that are fenced and safe. So you can just I've put the long lens on to shoot that. It's probably 200mm or something like that I've shot that at. This was the same storm, so just showing the waves.
Love this one of yours.
This cliff here is about 12 meters tall, and those rock shelves that I was saying don't go on are below the base here. So this water coming off it, a wave actually broke on top of this during that storm. So that's 12 meters above sea level. It broke on top of it and then cascaded off, and I got that shot. Took a lot of shots that day. It was not the greatest conditions for shooting in, but it was worthwhile.
Well, with an image like that, I don't know. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's the same day, obviously. And you can see just what we're talking about with the size of the waves. Just explosive.
Your mason must have felt the cliff shaking when some of those.
It was pretty bad. It's pretty bad, but but you get the scale of how that 12 meters, how tall it is there.
It does show also why you need to be careful near the edges, because look at that overhang there. Putting
you can't. You can't easily get on top of that spot either, which is probably a good thing. This is taken from the Fossil Bluff Lookout, basically. So there's a fenced lookout here that you can get this view of. So it was quite safe. And this was the same day. You can read that for yourself. I put this one together for social media. I'd already told this idiot off in the orange. They were trying to get on top of the rock shelf that has the sign that says "Don't go here because you'll die," and they were literally trying to get on top of that shelf. And so I yelled at him, literally yelled at him, and told him if he went on that shelf he would die. And he sort of, blew me off like you'd expect. And then they came around to this spot and stood there for a bit, and then I think they realised they were a bit close, and you can see what the drama was there, and that wasn't even a big wave, the one that you can see on the right. It was, what an idiot. This is at the Waterfall Bluff Lookout again. You were here with me this morning, were you?
Was that the morning? Yeah, right. I probably haven't edited that yet. So.
No, don't bother. I've got the shot, mate.
Yeah.
So you can see the lanterns in the background there, and the sea mist. It was just an amazing morning. And then a long exposure a bit later in the morning with that sea mist again. You can see it was just a wonderful morning and great light. Worked out really well.
Great company.
Yeah, there's not a lot of choice for a composition there. You basically shoot in that direction and that's it.
You probably do is go in tighter to the base of the cliffs, or pick out some detail.
Yep.
Or even shoot long to Hoy there or something.
Yeah. So
keep it trucking, Nick.
Yeah, what's the time? Oh, yeah, okay. So do row, will we? Have you got row shots?
I haven't got much row, so yeah, that'd be great.
I've only put in a few from one particular trip.
Unfortunately, I did a full shoot at Rowell, and it's the only shoot that I've ever wiped a whole card before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it was a good one too, but I made up for it later, and I got an Aurora there, so
yeah, I
still need to edit that one up as well.
Yeah. So these shots were taken quite a long time ago now, started 2014. I need to go back there and with a fresher eye and do some other work. You'll see this bush on the walk if you have a bit of a look around. There's cliffs in the background, very high cliffs.
They're great, those ones. Yeah, they're quite a photo in their own right, the ones in the back. And it's not the main part of Rowell, but I quite enjoyed photographing there.
Yeah, really bare on the top of the cliffs. You've got this, sort of these succulent plants.
Pig face, I think. Yeah.
They're a type of pig face. There's not much else growing on the top of the cliffs there before you get to the main thing. This is Cape Rowell looking from one of the two lookouts. There are two lookouts, one that looks down the spine, like this one, and another one that looks at it from the side, which I'll show you in a minute.
Completely different perspectives, aren't they? Like you wouldn't know it was the same place.
Yeah. This is, again, this particular bit is unfenced. In high wind, you have to be very, very careful.
Yeah, it's not really a high wind place because you wouldn't be able to use a tripod at all.
No.
So
I had the scariest moment I've ever had, not on this trip, but when I first took up photography, I walked out to Cape Rowell and I set up on something. It's in this particular area. I don't think it's that particular bit, but on one of these sort of outcroppy bits, I might actually be standing on the same one there, but there's you can see how this tree is growing out of the crack here. There was a little stunted bush that was growing out of the middle of a crack like that, and I was fiddling with my tripod and I actually tripped on the bush and I nearly went over the cliff. It
Holy
was
crap.
Extremely close. I have told that story to a few people before, but it was bad, and I didn't need to do it, and I learned a lesson that day that didn't cost my life. So
yeah, and that's probably goes without saying, but that some of these locations we're shooting, you do have to push it a little bit.
That one
there
there,
you go, yeah.
That's the bush.
You would have just been caught by the shelf below there. You would have been right there.
No, that trust me, that drops straight off. If I fell that way, it might be all right.
Yeah.
But no, it was.
Oh, you're going that way, yeah.
It's 200 meters tall.
Yeah. Not going to come back from that one.
Yeah, This is my
Oh, I love that.
my specky shot down the spine.
It's a really good place for that, getting that foam and the sort of patterns. And every time I go there, you get different amounts of that foam, and you can really play with that.
Yeah, that's really cool. This is at sunset. The great thing about Cape Rowell, if you're shooting down the spine, is sunrise hits the other side, sunset hits this side. It faces southwest, so you can't go wrong either end of the day shooting there. That just shows you the dolerite hanging on there. And 200 meters below.
Is it true as well? I heard a story where like you can see those columns there along Cape Rowell, and it's probably the best example of that in Tassie. Maybe Acropolis might have a bit of it too, but they were used as targets for a military exercise, and that's actually one of the catalysts for starting a bit of an environmental movement in terms of protecting these places.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So the Royal Navy, not the Royal Australian Navy, but the English Royal Navy used these pillars as target practice, and they've actually blown several of these columns off. I couldn't tell you exactly which ones, but it's a true story, and was reported in the Mercury in the 1880s. I think it was a couple of times that they used it, and the locals were completely outraged by it, and it's sometimes quoted as being the very, very seed of the Tasmanian environmental movement, although I'm not quite sure that would be an accurate way of saying it, but people were pretty outraged that such a spectacular formation was targeted by military shelling. But the whole of the peninsula was used with different bits for military exercises, and it's a true story, that one, unfortunately.
Sad. And that must be quite a long exposure too. You've got some pretty smooth stuff going on there.
Yeah, so this is way before dawn, just a big exposure. This spot here actually now has a fence. It didn't have a fence when I shot this. It's not a very big spot, but
you've got to be careful there.
It's better with a fence because, it's not better with a fence. I'll take that back. It's safer with a fence, that's for sure, particularly now that it's a more popular walk.
And the fence is good. You can lean up your tripod up against it, whereas you wouldn't want to lean the tripod up against. Well, there's nothing to lean it against otherwise. So that does help that way. Yeah,
and it means that a few people can stand at the same spot. Like I said, it was very dangerous beforehand. You just had to have your wits about you.
This is also sort of south facing in the angle that you were just showing there. So it's a reasonably good aurora spot. And I actually was shooting an aurora here one time and had some bioluminescence going in the water down below. Oh, wow. And there was a light on the side of the cliff, and I couldn't work out what was going on. And there was some rock climbers that had obviously miscalculated things and were climbing back in the dark, effectively. So I've got some shots of these lights traversing across the front of the columns there. So
the other thing here, I can't zoom in too far because of the res, but this white patch down here is a seal haul out. So sea lions haul out on that spot there, and all that white is sea lion poo. You can hear them when you're up on the. They're a long way away, but you can still hear them making their god-awful noise.
Yeah,
and it's with a long lens you can pick them out as well. It's quite a cool thing. This is at the same lookout, but looking towards Tasman Island. Spectacular morning. The sunrise was just eerie, really, really just so different. I was really lucky just to get that atmosphere. There's obviously another shot of it, not as good. And then a bit later in the morning, it sort of lit underneath these clouds here, and just a great spot. But that's taken with a long lens, of course. Another long exposure from that area. You can see the foam patterns Luke was talking about. They change, and
great target, great to play with in a long exposure for sure. I think it's probably one of the better long exposure locations in Tassie.
If
you don't have any wind, of course.
And this wasn't a particularly windy morning, but it does get very windy in this area. I think that's it for Cape Rowell. So we might. Just wondering if we should. I'll mention Tessellated briefly.
Yep.
I've only put a few shots in. I've been to Tessellated Pavement more times than most people have had hot dinners, and I haven't even got some of the good ones here. I just picked out a few. So this is actually along from Tessellated Pavement. It's a little island called Clyde's Island, which is just off the. It's a little island you can see that you'll see in the photos as we go. So yeah, so the Clyde's Island's at that island at the back there. A great spot for photography. You can't go wrong. Tides can make a bit of a difference. Low tide and high tide can give you completely different results. I'd recommend a mid tide for there if you can swing it. So you get a bit of water movement over the tessellations. Low tide can be great for seeing a lot more detail, but no water movement.
And it can dry out too, and you don't get any reflections or anything.
Yeah.
Low tide. So I think mid tide's probably a good option going out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was an aurora, not well lit, but this amazing blob. It was called the blob at the time. Everyone saw it, and just a really weird, very bright green thing that happened away from the main aurora, sort of more to the southwest.
Is that some Steve? Like the giant purple ray there?
Yeah, that's the rays out here, and there was more going on.
There was a lot going on. That was a big night, by the Lord.
Yeah, it was a big night.
I haven't had one like that for a while.
No, and you can see the sort of patterns you can get. So you got the sort of innies and the outies with the tessellation. So you got the raised sort of loaves, and then you've got the scalloped out areas like I've got in the foreground here, where it's you get the lower lying, and the water sits in there, and you get some nice reflections.
Oh goodness!
Probably my luckiest shot ever. Bioluminescence and lightning just round the corner from at the time.
Clyde's there in the distance.
Yeah. So it's down the beach a bit. At the time I hadn't heard of anyone doing the same sort of thing, getting the two in the one. I've seen it since, but we don't get a lot of lightning in Tasmania.
No.
I was chasing this storm. I ended up down here, and I realised there was bioluminescence in the water, and I nearly fainted with excitement. You can see there.
Wow, so good.
On the beach.
Look at that. The little strike in the back there.
Yeah. No, it was, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just set it up and hoped for the best. You can see here, there's this really cool little pool that is great for reflections. This isn't
like someone got a ruler out, isn't it? It's ridiculously straight. Yeah,
I've actually got better shots of it than this, even when we went recently. But anyway, I've thrown this one in. You can see you can get the stars.
It's a very good astrophotography location because you've got the east face, and then it's also good for auroras, as Nick showed as well. So it's a good place to cover both bases. Actually, if it's good for astro, and there could be a chance of aurora, you can sort of if the aurora doesn't show you, still get some astro shots. So that's always nice. And a lot of people, a lot of mates will drive from Hobart to out there because it's only really an hour's drive, and you sort of got a reasonably good chance of good compositions.
Yeah, well, there's a good example of when things go right with an aurora, and so that's Luke's got some great shots of
getting the reflections of the stars and the waters. It's always a lot of fun there. So
and that's a single exposure. Just for anyone that's curious, I don't tend to muck around with these things. So you can get good results just from a single exposure.
I always seem to get quite a bit of air glow there too. I don't know if it must just be the really clear skies that are, and you're looking, out over the water. But see it more there than most places. No,
you're right. You definitely do get it. I'll just quickly show this. This is at the end of Roaring Beach, so away from Tessellated now. So this is that surf beach near Newbina. I actually broke my tripod during this shot, and I replaced it with my current tripod. You get trigger plants down on the peninsula. The Boxing Day sort of is when I look out for them through to New Year's and a bit beyond. You get fields of them. They're spectacular.
Is there any particular spot for that, or you'd rather not say? Or
well, this is Point Pure.
Okay.
So that tree in the background, the big tree, has been cut down since, because it was dead and dangerous. But you can see that the convict.
Is that near the coal mines, sort of?
No, it's opposite the historic site. So it's
okay.
Where his home was. So there's a few ruins in there, but you get these fields of trigger plants, and that's definitely a summer, Christmas time, New Year time thing. It's a favorite spot. This is Marion Bay, storm coming through. Just to show it's a great spot for cloud watching. This was Marion Bay as well.
Yeah.
So after that big storm that we're talking about and showed the shots of before, a couple of weeks later I went down, or maybe a week later I went down to Marion Bay, because this wreck, which is called the Zephyr, which was wrecked in 1853, was uncovered by the storm. It's usually buried under sand and you can't see it. Sometimes the storm will remove a bit of sand and you'll see a few bits sticking up, but this was the most uncovered it's been in many, many, many years. So I was really lucky. I got a great sunrise down there.
It's one of those bacon cloud sunrises. So good.
Yeah, and I was there. The shots. There's actually a shot of this on the plaque at the lookout at Marion Bay. The friends of Marion Bay approached me to use one of the shots, and you can actually see a cropped version of it there on the as you're looking out across Marion Bay, which is nice. Yeah, so I was really lucky. I did lots of detail shots as well, just to show the bolt holes and stuff like that. So once the sunrise finished, I basically documented it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Not many people have the chance to do that.
Yeah, and that's obviously, I've gone around the side a bit there and taken it through there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool, but it's not there unless you get a big storm. So, and that's back at Point Pure.
Beautiful.
Trigger plants.
And they're native, aren't they? Tassie native.
Well, they're not endemic to Tasmania, but they are to southeastern Australia. I think you find them on the mainland as well.
Yeah.
What is it? I can't remember.
It's just always nice when you see a carpet of flowers and it's actually native ones. So
I definitely know it's not weeds or anything. We've actually got some next to the lawn at the shack, which I'm careful not to mow over.
Yeah.
So this is at Safety Cove. If I show you this shot here, that's Safety Cove. The rock pools on the end of the beach, which is a great spot for some detail shots, and also you can see Tasman Island in the layers in the background there, and towards Cape Pillar, and then you've got Mount Arthur here, which Luke will shortly show you. Just some nice little rock pools and a great beach. So that's just another spot there. Taken quite a few shots there, but I haven't got many specky shots from there. And this is Lagoon Beach, which is near Lion Bay, which was on the western sheltered side that I talked about earlier. Just cool spot, and that's the same tree in the background, and these sandstone formations are really cool. At high tide, you might have trouble getting in around here because the water comes up and through this gap, etc. But it's a nice spot for. That was a really strong direct sunset there, or just sort of afterglow.
Yeah,
it was really, really bright, which was great. Just a focus stack lichen shot I thought I'd put in because I haven't shown it anywhere before. Literally 2 minutes walk from a shack. Nothing overly spectacular, but there's always something to shoot when the sunrise isn't happening. So, What are we doing? Right, I might unshare screen.
Yeah,
and,
sure, no worries. Yeah, I do notice that your Three Capes folder was untouched there, so it must have been very hard to do that, Nick. So I do appreciate that because
no, it's your turn, and I'll show a few.
Yeah, I'd love to still see yours at the end because although they will be relatively similar because we did take the same trip, so that yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of the photos that I've actually taken for Parks and Wildlife. And just general along the track experience, and basically it's almost like a virtual journey along the walk, just to give you a bit of a flavour of it. I've done it with two different organisations. So I've obviously done it for Parks and Wildlife, which is the standard public walk, and I've also done it for the Tasmanian Walking Company as well. So you'll get a bit of a unique view of the private versus public offers, which do vary quite a lot. But I have to say, and as you'll see, the level of quality that they put into the huts is just the public huts even is a really high standard, and I think it kept Tasmanian Walking Company on their toes in terms of making sure that they had to have an offer that exceeded that. So I will share to where am I? Number 3. All right. So hopefully you can see that now. Is that all good, Nick?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is just where you actually sign in for the walk, and you actually sign in at Port Arthur. There's an awesome shot of Cape Pillar there in the foyer. And then you jump onto the boat at Stewart's Bay Lodge, and they take you on a cruise where you can see all sorts of things like sea eagles, and
I've got the same shot.
yeah, big stacks, and a view out towards Tasman Island with Cape Pillar. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you can see Cape Pillar there in the distance, and you can see the little lighthouse on Tasman Island there as well. And so that's probably the closest you actually get on that particular cruise, or the start of the Three Capes track. It's just a little add-on that they provide, and actually the Tas Walking Co. Private walk doesn't actually do that. They just take you straight across to the start, and so you're on the boat heading across. There's the intrepid Nick Monk getting off of the boat, and then you've got just a little coastal sort of a creek coming out at this is what's it called, Denman's Cove.
Yep.
I think that's another shot from the cruise. Then you have to go through a boot station, which basically scrubs off any Phytophthora, which is a fungus that basically kills a lot of plants. So very important to do that just to stop the spread. So these aren't necessarily amazing from a photographic perspective, but just more storytelling. So this is the first hut. So this is Surveyor's hut. So basically, you can sort of see how full on the place is. It's quite palatial when you first come around the corner and see it. It's definitely has a bit of a presence about it. So but it's beautiful inside. You've got great views out towards what would be Cape Rowell in the distance.
Yep.
But you can see it's quite a complex, and I think that's has also made a few more of the conservationist people, I suppose, a bit more miffed about why it was such a large development. But I guess that they had the future in mind. That's what they needed to do. But it's an outstanding building, even a barbecue, and they've angled the windows so that it prevents bird strike, so the birds don't fly into the windows because of the way the reflection is diverted. So that's pretty cool. And so that was the end of the Surveyor's hut, and saying see you later to the ranger.
Oh my God.
And then at the time they were also actually doing helicopter flights. So this is them actually building the Crescent Lodge, which I'll show you in down the track, which is basically the Tasmanian Walking Company's lodge on the first night. So and a bit of a rainbow there as well. But at particular time, helicopters were everywhere all the time. They even had parts of the track where you couldn't actually walk across at certain times because of helicopters flying overhead. So and that's how they had to build it, because you can see the terrain. It's full on, so you wouldn't be able to get anything in there other than helicopter, really. This is when we did it. We had the most remarkable conditions where we actually had a rainbow that sort of formed over the top of Mount Brown, and it just sort of stayed there. The rainbow sort of came closer and closer, and it was just like putting on a show. It was quite unbelievable.
Yeah,
and it went in double at one point, so just unbelievable. And so yeah, it was certainly Tassie at its finest that day. Pretty celebratory. Yeah, as it got closer, yeah, it almost yeah, I don't know, it didn't have a beginning or end. It was just, yeah, just like that. So
that this was done in winter, and that sort of squally, showery weather that you get, and then clear skies, is typical following a cold front. So you get the cold front that came through overnight and into the morning, and then following behind it was the southerly airflow with the speckled cloud mass. So it was quite chilly. It was just August.
Yeah.
But you get these spectacular little pockets of showers. And
yeah,
like we were saying earlier, the Tasman Peninsula is just renowned for these sort of short bursts of weather. So you get these beautiful rainbows and stuff, and just changes every minute.
Yeah, you can see the squalls coming too, so you can kind of see what they're going to do, and you kind of know in advance if you're going to get hit by something as well. But yeah, certainly one of the things I guess I learned through this walk is that if it's raining, look everywhere you can and see if there's any rainbows going on, because I guess if the sun's out shining, sometimes the rainbow's there and you don't realize the sun is able to shine through and actually light up that part of the sky. So yeah, it's always worth having a bit of a look around. I'm sort of I mentioned about this hut. That's basically where you stay on the first night. That's called Surveyor's hut. And then this is the view from Mount Brown. So I think Mount Arthur. So Nick had an image just recently that showed Mount Arthur, and so this is looking back the other way. Obviously, that's Crescent Bay down there, and Mount Brown there, and then Maingon Bay is here, and then obscured behind, or you can sort of see it here, is Cape Rail. This is Rail was getting slammed at the time on this particular one, so you can sort of see the start of the rainbow coming through. And then we just seem to get rainbow after rainbow on that trip. It was quite amazing.
And you get that. You're talking about the cloud forest now?
Yeah, we're getting there. That's Fortescue's after Redacuna, I think, isn't it? No, yeah, it is.
The small cloud forest.
Oh, that's the other little one. Yeah, that's right. And then that's just a native cheeseberry that's only found on Tasman Peninsula, apparently. But yeah, this is that little cloud forest here. I've got the little sign there even that you come across on the way through. A few flowers, and the other thing you'll find on the track is they've done all of these different seats. They've got, I think it was the UTAS art students to design some seats up. I could be wrong about that, but they've got them all over the place. And I guess the idea is that it provides some level of interpretation as well as a place to rest as well, although some of them are debatable as to how useful that would be as actual spots to rest. I guess that would be great to stretch out on for sure and take in some sun rays. So that's all good. That's actually jumping ahead a bit, that particular one. But yeah, it looks like what did we do? We went to Munro Hut, wasn't it?
And we went out from there.
Yeah, I don't seem to have that part of it here, unfortunately. This is past that, and starting to walk out onto Cape Pillar itself and looking across towards Tasman Island. Had some beautiful light there, and then it sort of changed quite dramatically in the more blue hour sort of light that came through after. So the one thing to note about shooting like this sort of area for sunset on the Three Capes is that they didn't really set the Three Capes up for photographers at all. So to get out here is probably 45-minute walk, I would say, from Munro Hut, which is the hut on the second night. And so that's just something to consider in terms of extra walking that you're going to have to do if you've committed to taking some and photos. And the same goes actually for sunrise at the Blade. Normally what people would do is wake up in the hut, cook their breakfast and then head out to the Blade after that, and coming back and then going to Redacuna Hut the night after. But because of if you want to be out at sunrise, it's actually quite an early start. And if it's in summer or something like that, it's a very, very early start to get out there for sunrise. So it's a consideration that needs to be made.
How far was it to the Blade? Was it an hour and a half walk?
I think it'd be about an hour and a half. Yeah, it's not a particularly arduous walk. It's quite long. I think from memory it was very icy, and
was it?
You had to be very careful about that, given the temperatures we had. But it's hard getting up at sunrise and doing that. But the rewards are definitely there if you put the effort into. And so this is a view looking down the Blade towards Tasman Island in the distance. Little Tasman Island lighthouse there as well. And I mean, the actually being here taking this photo is extremely dangerous, and I can't recommend it. But like Nick said, I'm taking the photo so you don't need to, or what have you. But anyway, that's your call to make. But
you can get a shot from there that's a bit back from the edge. That's safe.
And I've got a few photos coming up from the Tas Walking Cove walk that sort of show that as well, actually. So that's actually the same view. I always wondered where this was taken, and doing the research before I actually did the walk, I couldn't work it out. But it's actually just looking almost where I was taking that last shot, but just looking around to the right, and you can see Cape Rowell there in the distance, and it's quite remarkable. I mean, these are all of the cliffs essentially that you're walking past as you come out to Cape Pillar. So it sort of gives you a bit of an idea of the size.
That high point, Luke, on the sort of to the left of the cliff, that's where we took those shots from.
Yes, that's right. That other lookout looking back towards Cape Pillar, and I believe that's the spot. Yeah. So that it could be one further around as well. There's a few little vantage points like that along the way. So, but yeah, I mean, again, it's not you're still risking it for a biscuit in this sort of place. So, once the sun came up, had quite nice light coming over as well. So, definitely. I mean, that's kind of like the pinnacle experience, really, on the whole walk is doing the coming out to the Blade. I think it's pretty hard to argue against that being the kind of most spectacular location. And you can also, while you're there, photograph all three capes. So this is Cape Hoy looking back. It's my version of the show graphic, which really isn't edited at all. You really do have a view of Hoy, and then you look back the other way and you've got Cape Rowell as well. So it's pretty good going there to see it all. And then this is just some of the other seats that you get along the way. There's also a chasm, so you walk along past the Blade and there's a big chasm there, which is a pretty terrifying sort of drop.
That's where the tallest. That's where the actual tallest cliffs are, right there. So they're the 300 meter high cliffs. It's amazing. It's just unbelievably high.
It's pretty remarkable. Yeah. And then further around, you get a view like this, so you can sort of see. I think that the cliffs here on the right are those tallest cliffs. And then you're looking at Cape Pillar. So where I was taking that photo before was probably pretty much just up here, looking down on these stacks here and then onto Tasman Island. So you can sort of see that, that's a fair way. So, I mean, great place here for long exposures as well. And differing light. You'll probably be really, really great for sunrise as well. Doing one from here, I guess you always want to do it from the Blade, but that might be another good vantage point to revisit for a sunrise. A few more of the seats here, and this is kind of like what the walking track's like. Heading out to this is walking back, I think, towards Munro Hut. And then on to Redacuna for that particular day. I think this is the view from Munro Hut. So you've kind of got Cape Hoy there in the distance. It's quite a specky view, even just from Munro. I think that's Redacuna though. There's these huts here.
Yes. Wow.
So that, I mean, it's pretty beautiful spot where the huts are located. They're quite big and palatial, as I mentioned, but I guess they'll serve their function for many years. So Three Capes is a probably the pinnacle product now for parks, I would say, if you're looking at it from a more commercial perspective. So amazing trees and very tall trees. So it's always nice to look up and get a few different perspectives going. I think this was taken on the last day, just walking through. I mean, the forest changes so much, it's always a good idea to keep tabs on things. This is walking up through up to Mount Fortescue, so it's really weird to kind of go from coastal heath and then all of a sudden you've got these huge tree ferns coming through as well. So
big spot.
Yeah, it was really like in terms of a journey and seeing different vegetation types and things. It's really spectacular coming through that particular part because it's so different. Oh, there's Nick pointing at probably
oh, look, there's a cave.
A bit of a sea cave thing there or something like that. There's a pretty cool little notch thing there though. That's on the last day. You see, you're looking back onto Cape Pillar here, and then Munro Hut would be in here somewhere, which is, so you're basically walking from here all the way along here to Cape Pillar on that particular day, and then Redacuna Hut's down back off the peninsula there, or that particular part of the Cape, sorry, and that sort of thing. And then
it's worth mentioning, Luke, that it's actually, even though it's easy walking generally, it's quite long. It really is.
Yeah, they're decent days. You do feel it. The track's pretty hard underfoot, so blisters are, going to be a factor. Luckily, your pack doesn't have to be super heavy because you don't need a tent, you don't need a mat. That's probably where it ends, though. You probably need everything else still. And often as photographers, you've got, a handicap with all of the camera gear you have to carry. So that's always a factor. And this is basically getting to Cape Hoy, and the incredible view that you get from Cape Hoy at the end. It's quite a mission getting to Hoy in some ways. That last day is relatively large, walking up over Mount Fortescue and then coming back down onto Cape Pillar, and you think, oh, you're there, but then you've got hundreds and hundreds of steps to climb to get back out to the Cape. So you can put your pack down there and leave that behind, and just take a lighter day pack. But it still gets the heart pumping for sure, getting up those stairs. And then that's Hippolyte Rock there in the distance as well. I've done heaps of different versions of this over the years, and certainly not my favorite version of it, but basically, that's pretty much the end point, I think, of the track. And then quite often people have a bit of a swim at the end, just to, I don't know, because they're crazy. The water can't be that warm. So that was the public hut version in a very quick view. I'll just go quickly now through the private one. Which is basically, this is the same sort of entry, really. You might recognize Davey Rogers in some of these pictures. He came along as talent on this particular trip, which was amazing to share with him. Again, coming out onto Denman's Cove, and then walking up through past that's basically the start, where they've got an installation there that talks about this being the start. Got our guide sort of leading everyone on, so it's a big difference. You have actual guides that are very experienced, and she's done multiple, probably 30 or 40 overland track trips and things like that. So these are people that really know the bush, and also cook a mean feed as well. The guides are the best people, I swear. They're just amazing people. This is actually the inside of Crescent Lodge. This was sort of set up as more of a library room, but now it's actually used by the sort of lodge manager as their residence. So they've got a pretty epic view out of their little residence. I couldn't get in there last time I was there, but you can sort of see it's pretty lush inside. Great little view, a little bit obstructed by the trees, but you can't just go around chopping trees down just because you want a better view.
They're great trees, though.
Beautiful trees. Yeah. And so just a really amazing place to end up after the first day. It's really quite a short day of walking that day, but it just gives you a bit of a flavor for how the other people live. I don't know. And yeah, little fire, but yeah, that area is not available anymore. So that was called Crescent Lodge, and then walking through to the next day, that's when we come up over Mount Arthur, which is there in the distance. And that's looking from Mount Arthur back to probably a little bit further around, I think, than no, that's Arthur, yeah, and then that's Crescent Bay there, and then looking back around there, and then you start to get a bit of a view across towards Tasman. I think that's part of Tasman Island there, I think, and that sort of area through there. A great place to stop and have a rest sometimes and look up in the trees. They'd have done it really well in terms of all the seating, and they've sort of thought about, where everyone should be at particular times, and like provide interactive sort of interpretations and things. That's Hippolyte Rock. This one I went a bit crazy with the colors on, but this is the second lodge, which is called the Cape Pillar Lodge. I actually did have a drone permit to take some still photos there, which is very hard to get on the Tasman Peninsula. Had to jump through a few hoops. That's probably more reasonable colors. You can see how far I took it. But yeah, definitely a pretty specky spot where they've got it. You can see how it's all nestled in the vegetation there. I mean, obviously they've got a lot of bushfire mitigation stuff, but if you have a fire, it's going to be an expensive insurance claim basically, because that's I guess part of the deal. You can't remove too much vegetation because that it's hard to justify enough as it is. And then we went out to Cape Pillar on that trip as well, obviously, and got out there pretty early in the morning. Managed to get a rainbow out there, which I was pretty stoked about. This gives you a bit more of an idea of the vantage point, and it's still really not the most safest place, even where these guys are standing. And I'm sure that organizations would probably struggle using this sort of imagery because it sort of doesn't promote the right kind of behavior. Normally they say you should be 3 meters back from a cliff edge is the respectable thing to do. So typically images won't be used. That's probably more keeping that in mind. I don't think it's 3 meters, but the idea is that you don't want to be showing people literally on the edge because it's just encouraging the wrong sort of behaviors.
Not that we've done any of that tonight.
Not at all. No. Of photographing out here. I mean, you could go and pretend, but I mean, if you're being pragmatic, unfortunately, that's what's required, and so you just have to have your wits about you. And I'd never advocate anyone pushing themselves to do it at all. So, Hippolyte Rocks, you get some amazing light coming across at different parts of the day. Just unbelievable. Bit of Tasman Island Lighthouse. We had that one there. That's another view looking back towards, Tasman Island in the distance as well. This was a pretty cool moment, having a sea eagle come over and with Tasman Island and all of that in the distance. Just like, so even the weather wasn't amazing this day, but you just get so much mood, and sometimes that's just as good, so sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a bit painful, but you do, that mood really does, and you see these squalls coming through and things like that. I mean, it's one of the probably best places, I think, in Tassie to see this kind of sort of weather patterns coming through. It's
great
really
because you're elevated up so high, you're actually below the squalls at times.
Yeah, definitely. So it just works so well. I guess it's be pretty good for whales, but I never saw any. That's Cape Hoy going off there.
That's cool.
Quite a few big waves hitting the back. That would have been taken from the Cape Pillar Lodge, which has a really great view across to Cape Hoy from one of their rooms. That's Hippolyte there, and then another view of Hoy there as well. Bit more drama and mood on that one, so that's pretty cool. And this is the Cape Pillar Lodge. Pretty nice digs. That's the bathrooms. And so it's very different to Crescent Lodge, that you don't really have such a view from the actual main lodge itself, the better views actually from kind of like the reading room, which is where these ladies are here, except the views where they're looking. So basically, if you look out from the direction they're looking, you'll see that kind of a view. So it's pretty nice. And again, there's a few more of probably the next morning when the weather wasn't quite so nice, just sort of showing how the lodge sort of nestles in the landscape there. And then what else do we do after that? I'm trying to find. That's kind of like one of the last shots I have from that particular job, because we didn't go any. We basically just wanted to shoot the lodges, and that's actually the last lodge. So the Three Capes public walk has 3 huts. The Tas Walking Co one only has 2 huts, and basically stay in the Munro hut. The Cape Pillar hut for lodge for 2 nights, rather than going to the Redacuna hut, which they do on the other walk. So it does make your walk out on the last day quite a bit longer than the private version. But the accommodation's pretty nice. So you kind of, I think it was hard for them to justify a 3rd hut otherwise. So it's probably for the best in some ways, because then they didn't, have more footprint to deal with. I did another job more recently. They had a restaurant at the edge of the world. So they had some nice Banksias going on. So that was at the Crescent Lodge. It was pretty nice conditions that we had actually. Looking out to Crescent Bay there, views of Raoul, some nice food as well. Great little deck here to look out over the view towards Mount Brown and Crescent Bay. That's a closer in view of that. We even had the guide is a very, very, very good harpist. So she was actually playing the harp. So nothing like a bit of luxury out in the wilderness. It's such a nice juxtaposition, isn't it? But the views towards Raoul are probably the hero in that particular part of the world. But and this just gives you a bit of an idea of the Crescent Lodge, really working those Banksias. The chef was fantastic as well. Great food. So, and then I even got a little bit of a cheeky astro shoot in there, which was pretty hard to manage with how bright the lights were in the thing. And then some stars over the view out towards Cape Raoul as well. So, and then I've probably only just got another handful of other shots. So that sort of sums up those 2 walks. Not really that well, but it gives you a bit of a flavor for maybe the differences between the 2, and also they're both bookable products. So if you wanted to do it, I mean, obviously you can, in theory, it's probably worth mentioning, you can actually get to Cape Pillar not being on the Three Capes track. Like, you don't have to pay to get out there. I don't think parks would particularly like people to know that. They'd probably prefer people take actually do the track. But it's a big day though to walk out there. I think it's 30 kilometers return to head out to Cape Pillar and back. So that's it. And then you can do the same with Cape Hoy. So you can actually walk into Cape Hoy from Fortescue. So you don't actually need to do the Three Capes walk to see both of those. And obviously Raoul isn't even part of the Three Capes track. It should really be called the Two Capes track, really. So that's all there. This is my shot of Tessellated Pavement. Awesome. And that's another one taken. I was very lucky with this one. The sun was basically rising between Clyde Island and around, but you can really see if you get the right tide and you have a few bit of water remaining in the actual tessellations, I guess, you get these amazing reflections. So that's pretty nice. This is a few quick aerial shots that I've taken. I've been lucky enough to get up in a chopper. Very highly recommend it. It's the best way to do it. Well, there's a couple of ways. The more cost-effective way would be to take a chopper from Port Arthur, and that's with Osborne Helicopters, Osborne Aviation, I think they are called, and they leave just out of Port Arthur. The issue that they have is they have an 8 a.m. curfew. So if you're wanting to get out there actually for sunrise, you may actually be better flying from Hobart, because then you can actually, but then you've got timing against you too, in the sense of having extra time to get out there. I mean, if you're flying from flying from Port Arthur to get over to here, it's going to be probably a 10-minute flight at the most. So it's very, very close. So it doesn't take that long at all. In fact, the Osborne put a base in Port Arthur to support the construction of all of the lodges on the Three Capes track. That was their main purpose. So they don't really do so many joy flights, but obviously they do. And you know, it's it's the most amazing coastline to photograph, I think, apart from maybe Freycinet. That's pretty well up there too. But yeah, it's hard to go past some of these cliffs. That's the blade there, and then you've got that's the other tall part. That's probably the tallest section there. I think that lookout that we had might be nestled in here. So yeah, it's pretty, and I don't have a shot of it, but every now and then you'll get like a little boat or something coming through the bottom, and that just totally shows you the sense of scale and blows you away. It's another shot looking back over the lanterns towards Cape Pillar in the distance, and that's Cape Hoy there basically. So so definitely a specky spot, and definitely recommend doing it if you've got the budget and have the time to head out and do that. Obviously heli tourism isn't where Tassie actually wants to be, but if you just have to consider that, I suppose, as part of your impact, that there is still an impact there. That's one of my more favorite shots of Hoy, and looking out over the cliffs there, a bit of a focus stack just to get the foreground sharp on that one. And then this is a take on Rail, where you've got those sort of foam patterns that I was talking about sort of coming through, and you can really create some pretty impactful sort of shapes, and you go through the different frames that you've taken and work out which ones work the best. What else have I got in my bag of tricks? This is tessellated pavement with an aurora, similar to Nick's as well. Nick's had a much bigger aurora than this. I actually think we're shooting this one together, weren't we, Nick?
Yep.
And so so you can really work these foregrounds, and I haven't done a full proper edit of this yet, because I'll do a median stack and then get the stars right, and all of that's just a lot of work. But that's definitely a great spot for aurora viewing. I think that's probably about it. I mean, this is my sort of quick shoot down on Crescent Bay. You can see Nick had some nice unmodified, untouched sand on his shots, but if you get there at the wrong time, then there's plenty of footprints. I guess it's good incentive to get there very early in the morning, so there's less chance of that. And I guess you'd want to be careful too where you walk, so you're not creating your own little footprints to have to deal with later down the track too. So but you can really, this gives you a really good idea of the size of the actual dunes there, and why I guess people like doing the sandboarding down the sides and that sort of thing. So it gives you, obviously had a not great weather that day, but more just to give you a flavor. There's some pretty good wildflowers going at the time.
It was
I can't remember I know what they are, but I can't remember what they are to say.
I know
Melaleuca or something or other, Squamia, I think, Melaleuca squamia, and then managed to have a little echidna pop up as well. So it can be a great place for wildflowers as well, and which I'm getting more and more into shooting actually. So I reckon that's about it for me.
Right. Well, I might just show my last ones.
Let's do that. I'll just stop sharing. Yep.
So that was
there it is.
Cropped in sort of shot there. You can see he's got got some sort of kill there. He had something.
Yeah.
So we were very lucky to see him for quite a while. It was great. It's just some of the beautiful eucalypts on the first day near Surveyor's hut. It's not a great photo generally, but it's just showing some of the nice trees in there. This was that shot, looking a long shot, looking at that amazing rainbow squall that we had from Mount Arthur. Just loved how this was. It was sort of like a tornado of a waterfall in there, rainbow in there, and that obviously another shot of it just before the rain hit us.
Yeah,
big arch there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just a long exposure there. I've only just processed that one quickly tonight. Did that with a couple of them, but
I really love that lookout. That's probably one of my faves of the whole walk, I think.
Oh, it's great. It's a great spot. Yeah, really good spot. And
probably more of a sunset location, isn't it? Because of the side that it's
on. Yeah. So you dump all your gear at Munro, and then you'd walk out there. But like Luke said, it's probably 45 minutes to that spot, and then 45 minutes back. So if you want a relaxing evening, you're going to eat into it to go out there. But I'm sure photographers don't mind.
It's definitely one of those cases where the photographers have to work a lot harder, and if you're traveling with non-photographers, they're just sitting back relaxing, and you're still working hard. So it is a challenge.
Yeah. So obviously this was all taken on the same time that Luke was taking the photos as well. So we're great vegetation there, very stunted bushes and whatnot. Beautiful light.
Yeah, that last shot, Nick. If you go just that bit wider or do a pano, that's the perspective where you've got Hoy there in the right.
Yeah,
and then you'd get Pillar Rowell if you just went a bit further around to the left.
Yeah.
And then, then you're on Pillar, so you basically got all three capes there. Yeah.
But you definitely need to stitch that as a pano to get it.
Or 12 mil probably fit it. Yeah.
Maybe one of those stupid 12 mil Sony. I can't think of any other reason why you'd want one. But
you haven't used one then, that's for sure.
I'm joking
to say.
Just picking at you. So Luke's already shown a shot of this. So this is only shot at I think about 185 millimeters from. This is on Tasman Island, so you're looking at the lighthouse straight across from the blade. It's not very far at all once you're up there. It would be a spectacular place to visit, no doubt. And this is showing the haul out at Tasman Island. For those who don't know, so this was when it was badly damaged by the storms in June 2016. But basically, you tied your ship up to this rock here. And then there's a basket that goes, this rope that you can see there, that goes across to here, and you put yourself and your goods in, and then you would then be taken across on that rope to the haul out. So that's how you land on Tasman Island from the sea. You literally climb up on that rock, get in a basket, and then get pulleyed across a very dangerous stretch of water to the haul out here. And then you can just see going up this ridge here, some wood. That is the haulage line. So you then get into basically a railway cart that then gets pulleyed up the side of the cliffs. So very, very inhospitable and difficult to access place. And that's a 45-degree angle that and if the pulley wire broke, you might end up back in the drink. Absolutely amazing sort of spot. But
and they had to get everything that they used to build the whole thing up that.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It's just amazing. But you can see how bad the storm was to have it damaged like that. That far up out of the water. These must have been amazing waves to. They've repaired it now, but it's it was nearly the whole thing was taken out by those waves. This is in the forest on Mount Fortescue. This is a group of sassafras trees. I've never seen a group of sassafras trees like this before. So I stopped. Everyone stopped. Luke didn't bother getting out his camera. I said, "No, you've got to stop and take a photo of this." Unfortunately, it's a long day on the third day, and it's not. It's if you stop to take photos a lot, you would have a very long day getting out. But it definitely is worth, particularly if you had a bit of sea mist hanging around. That forest would be absolutely spectacular. It's just a breath of fresh air in there compared to the coastal vegetation.
Yeah, and it's really unexpected. Certainly, just even from geographical perspective, the next closest rainforest to that would be huge distance away, I would have thought.
No, it was really
a bit like there's a little pocket on Bruni as well that's a bit like that too.
Just a quickly edited shot I took. Only edited that today just to show the Cape Hoy view, but Luke's already shown you about 15 versions of that.
That's definitely the classic angle. Yeah, that's great.
This is looking back. I really like this shot. I took it with a neutral density filter to obviously blur it, but what I love about this is the cap of cloud on Cape Pillar. You can see the actual pillar itself, and then that there is the blade sticking up from the other side. Yeah. So that's actually the top of it just poking out, and that's what you stand on, the top of that little thing, and that's obviously why it's called the blade from that angle. But it's the back end that you're seeing there, and we're really lucky with that cloud there. The photo would be nothing without that blanket across Cape Pillar. It was just a really cool sort of thing. Obviously, this is my background tonight, but long exposure I took after Luke decided to go back to the hut. I said, "No,
I was wrecked.
You were. He was. I said, "No, I'm just going to hang around."
You were just like, you could just take photos of whatever you wanted, and I was having to get photos with talent and architectural stuff, and it's just so much. Yeah, it was getting the violin out, of course.
Yeah. But, I was getting the relaxed, easy photography, and Luke was flat out doing all he needed to do for.
Because then we had to get up for sunrise the next morning to do the blade, and it was. At least we had shorter days, but this is probably one of my favourite shots I've taken of a simple subject, I suppose. Without the complex, compositions and foregrounds. It's just a 50mm lens that fitted this all in, and a long exposure. It was obviously taken way after sunset, so that's the long exposure was 3 minutes, I think, and without a neutral density filter, it was just how it was. And obviously, I really liked how the lighthouse light came out. It's a really nice star. I was just so lucky. Yeah, that's the best bit about it. I see Paulie's joined us. Hey, Paulie.
Oh, we're about to finish, Paul, so we can no talking, Paul. And that's obviously tonight's show graphic. So that Luke showed you an unedited version of it, and this is the one I edited up. And that's it. So that is literally the end. I think, isn't it, like?
That's it, and that's a pretty good. Sharing. I don't know if you get too many rundowns quite like that in terms of the amount of detail that we showed you tonight. So hopefully you appreciated that, and certainly amazing to talk about this sort of place, because it's just absolutely stunning, and you're very lucky to be able to get over there so often, Nick. So
I do consider myself very privileged, and I don't take it for granted. It's sometimes with down there. I mean, I could have done a lot more photography than I have, but it's sort of it's what's the term? Anyway, you do take it for granted, and you don't get out as much. I mean, often when I'm down there from there with family, I'm not there to take photos, so I concentrate more on doing that. So but
you do, like, you'll go there for an extra day or something either side, or something sometimes for a photo day as well.
Yeah.
It's important that you can do what you love sometimes as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but it's an amazing spot. Anyone that goes down there with a camera in hand is going to come away with something they really love. So, but I think we better call it, Luke.
We shall. And next week, we've just got to confirm details, but we we have Michael Go joining us, who's based in Western Australia and does the most incredible astro panos, which I probably is, and probably some of the earlier ones that you would have seen too. So he goes by the name Astro Photo Bear, I think, on some of his socials. But yeah, it's definitely very excited to have him on. He's definitely one of my favorite astrophotographers, and probably I feel like maybe one of the best in the country. So very excited to have him on. Yeah, so until next week, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you